This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Rusev.
And welcome, wonderful WEBIT community from all around the world. It's another wonderful opportunity to meet, to exchange thoughts and ideas, and to work together towards creating the better, desirable future. With all of you, the millions we've been welcoming during the past year and a half already, we are craving to be together and to be somehow again in person. But until that happens, we still have our wonderful virtual world that we have built during the years. And here we are again together with you today with a very special guest. And without further ado, I would like to introduce her now.
Věra Jourová is currently Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency and deals with democracy, rule of law, disinformation and media pluralism. From 2014 to 2019, she served as EU Commissioner for Justice, Consumers and Gender Equality. In 2014, before arriving to the European Commission, Ms. Jourová held the position of Minister for Regional Development in the Czech Republic. Previous to this, from 2006 to 2013, she worked in her own company as an international consultant on European Union funding and was also involved in consultancy activities in the Western Balkans related to the European Union accession. She holds a degree in law and a master's degree in the theory of culture from the Charles University, Prague.
Such an honor to welcome today Věra Jourová, Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency in our virtual world. Hello, how are you?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It is our true honor and pleasure to welcome you. And first, because obviously your leadership is a great guiding light, but also because we are all looking at what you're doing, and WEBIT's community is built on values. We say the million plus people from all around the world are digerati and people with big hearts. So we will definitely discuss this because I believe that that's where Europe's true value comes, and that's what we call the real opportunity in building further. What are your future plans, and what more do you plan to achieve during this particular term at the European Commission in your current role as Vice President for Values and Transparency?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question, which gives me a chance to complain about how hard life I have, because to be responsible for the values and transparency, it's not the agenda where you can just tick the boxes. For instance, defending and promoting democracy, it is the everyday job for many. It should be, because democracy will not defend itself. It's a permanent work. We lived before, I think, 2013-14 in some kind of naivism that democracy and fundamental rights and freedoms will be with us forever without any extra effort. And we see that it's not true, especially in COVID time. We see that democracy is under a special stress test, and we have to do more to protect elections. We have to do more to protect the open and democratic public debate, active citizenship. We need, obviously, now see it, we need to protect more the media pluralism, and many other things. So these are my plans to do more and to invite more and more people and institutions to this common endeavor to protect democracy and fundamental rights in Europe.
And thank you so much for doing it. Could you please share from your personal experience, because there are not that many people who can share, how difficult is it to stand behind the title Vice President of the European Commission?
Yes. When I started this job in 2019, I said to Czech media that I have to put on bigger shoes because, of course, this is the high position in the Commission. I am coordinating the policies, not only the values, transparency, but also the justice sphere and the equality policy. So this requires maybe more horizontal approach. And this is fascinating because I see that the things are interconnected and that if we do not do everything to protect the values and including the rule of law, which I have not mentioned, we will see that it will have a very negative effect on coherence of Europe and on our ability to cooperate. So beneath all these chapters like rule of law, fundamental rights, freedom of speech, fight against disinformation. Beneath that, there is really existential need to do more and to be stronger. And as I said, to invite many to go in that direction. Now we are opening the conference on the future of Europe, where we open the platform for the people to contribute with their views. And among 10 topics which we opened, the topic of democracy is the stronger one. We received a lot of contributions already now. So it seems to be the theme which the people care about, and I'm happy about that.
We would love the whole WEBIT community to somehow support this initiative, because definitely at the end of the day, this is what really matters. We've been through obviously one of the hardest times and the hardest we remember as a generation with COVID, and protecting health and the pure survival definitely was the core to do. But now we are hopefully going out of this situation and getting back in where the values are, and democracy and diversity and everything from this caliber is obviously the most important. I wonder what inspired you in your life until now, mostly for you to grow and to develop both your personal and professional skills in order to be where you are currently. What were your inner battles towards the truth that made you stand behind and become such a prominent public space figure?
Yes, well, I am old enough to have a lot of previous inspirations and the methods which were forming the way I think and the way I work. For me, the biggest inspiration was my granny, who told me never complain and just go and do things. But to be more serious, well, for me, it was important that I entered politics at the local level in 1995. So it was soon after the revolution in 1989. And I soon realized that this must be truly public service, that we should serve the people, and that we should be open and transparent, and that we should have two-way communication with the people. Believe me, the first meeting with unhappy and critical citizen, it was one of the main moments in my political career. And the second, I lived half of my life in the society in communist Czechoslovakia, when I remember well, there was one official doctrine. Everyone who deviated from this official doctrine might have been even imprisoned. Independent judiciary, you could forget it, because of course everybody was also in judiciary sphere, was there to serve those in power, which was the Communist Party. And the free media, forget it, there was no free media. My father always told me to please do not believe anything they write in the newspaper. So these are my deeply rooted memories, which also influence what I am doing now. Because for me, the EU is, which we joined in 2004, this is the guarantor of not coming back to such regime and to such conditions. And so I think that working also on the rule of law agenda, if I can put it like that, and freedom of speech, this is the work where I am using these alerts from the past as a reminder that we should do everything not to come back and not to allow the tendencies which might bring us back to this kind of unfree society.
Yeah, let me remind you that my roots come back from Bulgaria, so I've been there, done that, and I can't say how much I agree with you. So definitely, how will European Democracy Action Plan help with achieving the promise to improve the European democracy?
Yes, we did a lot of analytical work to come to solutions which we are proposing in this plan. We are focusing on three things: on elections, because without free and fair elections, where the people can cast their free vote, when the people are not manipulated and when they can be authentic in their choice, this is chapter 1 in the plan. And of course, inevitably, we are looking at how online world is influencing the elections and might be influencing elections. To organize elections in the EU nowadays, it's not a business as usual, because we have to protect elections from the impact of manipulative content and disinformation, from cyber attacks, from abuse of private data through micro-targeting techniques. And we see that we have some gap in our regulatory framework, because we have rather overregulated offline space, and the fact that the political campaigning and pre-election communication has shifted to the online sphere. So that's why we are proposing the legislation. I will come with the legislation this year. It will be focusing on political campaigning online. And the second thing, to do everything against the impact of disinformation in our society. And it does not contain censorship. You can imagine, here again is my instinct. There must be nobody who will have the power to say what is the truth and what is the lie. But we need to do more of fact checking. We need to do more to address or to combat against manipulative behavior, attacks from outside on Europe. It would be for hours and hours to describe how we see that and what we want to do. And the third chapter in the plan is the protection and promotion of media pluralism. And we all see that media are, especially now in COVID time, under extreme pressure, economic pressure, political pressure, security threats. So we want to introduce legislation to protect journalists against the abusive litigations. We will recommend the member states to increase security of journalists when they are doing the jobs, because we have enormous rise of attacks on journalists. And I believe that if we follow all the actions and implement all the actions foreseen in the plan, we might have bigger certainty that our elections and our democracy in general will be better protected.
What about data protection and privacy? What has to be done in order to promote and empower them as a strong base to support and empower human rights and democracy?
Yeah, when you say data protection, it sounds so technical, but what is behind all that, behind all our efforts in this sphere, is to protect the individual freedoms of people. That it's interesting when, maybe it's interesting for me only, but I will share that with you. When I came to the Commission in 2014, the famous Gdpr was already adopted by the Commission, and there was a very difficult legislative process. And I after some time, I started to understand that this is about the individual freedoms of people. This is about protection of their identity, that we must do something against the massive impact of digital sphere, where there was the tendency to either to sell or steal the identity of people.
Yes.
The privacy of every individual. So we have GDPR. This is now used as a global standard. We are discussing with the United States whether they will follow suit, whether they will have a similar rules. GDPR went through an assessment last year. Not everything is perfect, but it is doing the basic job, that the protection of individuals is stronger in the EU, especially when it comes to digital data sharing. And it also serves as a basis for the new legislation which we are designing now. And this is especially the AI, the artificial intelligence legislation, which we want to develop. We want to invest in digital and AI and new technologies, but at the same time, we have to address the risks which might endanger lives and freedoms of people.
Thank you so much. And because you mentioned the word technology, and indeed, WEBIT is a global community of digerati and tech people, of course, policymakers and scientists, but predominantly tech entrepreneurs, innovators who push the boundaries and try to create, many of them, better world. But when it comes to technology, it's very tempting. Sometimes you go more for the technology rather than for the people. That's what we try at our community, to make sure we bring those people with big hearts who do whatever it is, but for the sake of the humans, not for the sake of technology. But this brings us to one of the most pressing challenges that we have currently. And it's a challenge and it's an opportunity, as everything. It's called AI, artificial intelligence. And there is this old story, which I'm quoting quite often, about the king who wanted to have everything that he touches turning into gold. And that's what happened. And that's how he died out of hunger, because even the food was turning into gold at the moment he touched it. This very much applies to where we are now with AI. We can do almost everything, and we might want, though, the wrong things. So saying all this, what is your opinion, and do you have concerns about copy-pasting, imperfections, unfairness of the real world into the AI world?
Of course, I will not surprise you by saying that I'm worried about what the technologies offer, and it's really the key question for us, or challenge for us, to develop the AI and technologies in general into the direction where it still serves the people, not the other way around. Yeah, and that's why I cannot answer differently than to tell you that copy-pasting of the imperfections and unfairness from the real world must not happen. Because if we do not catch it now, we will see the development which might be very detrimental, which might pose new risks for the people. So again, the human-centric approach we already applied in several other areas relating to technologies. We used it now for AI rules, which we adopted at the end of April. I think we didn't surprise anyone, because already before we adopted the White Book and the ethics standards, which said clearly there must not be any bias, any discrimination. It must not increase the gaps in the society. So we included in our recent legislative proposal requirements concerning the quality of data used by AI systems, so that bias can be avoided as much as possible. And we are also introducing a list of high-risk AI systems, which will have to go through stricter oversight and control, because of course not all the systems pose such high risks, but some yes, and we have calibrated, I think, quite precise list of those potentially risky AI systems where there will be stronger obligations regarding the quality and transparency of them.
Thank you so much, Vera. We will be back with Vice President Věra Jourová just after the break, and we will discuss further what AI legislation should look like and what initiatives should be taken. Stay with us, please.
The Virtual Show, the only one-stop shop event virtualization platform, bringing together hundreds of thousands of people by virtualizing human interactions. Fully customizable lobbies, conference halls, exhibitions, networking lounges with one-to-one, one-to-many meetings, group workshops, resources, help desks, and so much more, such as unparalleled content production like no other in the world. The Virtual Show. Transform your virtual experience today.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.
Well, we're back with the Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency, Věra Jourová, and we're discussing now where AI is bringing us to, and what are actually, we know where is it bringing us, or at least there are many opinions about this, but now the question is what EU will do in order to facilitate a human-centric approach. And we are discussing what are the AI laws that we need to prevent mistakes in the future when building this new world. Most probably it will be very much autonomous world. Vera?
Yes, well, we are now in a very important phase of indeed legislating on AI. I want to say one thing before describing a little bit what's in the legislation. We want to invest incredible amounts of money into digital transformation and AI technologies. And we count still with 20 billion euro per year to be invested in AI, which serves the people. I have to stress it again. Where we would like to see the combination of public and private money, also from recovery funds we want to invest. And we desperately need to promote and support the science, European science and research, and to keep the big brains in Europe so that they work on the projects here without any kind of protectionism. But we all know that in technologies we need to decrease the gap between the United States and China. And speaking about China, this is also good to mention that in whatever we do on AI, we really do not want to follow the systems or the solutions which we see in China, where, for instance, the social scoring or use of biometric identification systems is really something we do not want to have in Europe. And it answers partly your question on how we are approaching or planning to legislate, because we need to, and we try to do that in our proposal, to be proportionate and to apply precautionary principle, because we need to be watchful for risks, but also careful not to discard the benefits of AI unnecessarily. So, as I said before, we are taking this risk-based approach. We are listing the unacceptable risk, the high risk systems. We are concrete about how to handle and approach the remote biometric identification systems, which are considered high risk and subject to the strictest possible requirements. And all of that is based on the principle that first of all, the privacy of people and it has to be protected, and that's why I have to mention again the Gdpr, which is the basic kind of arrangement or basic rules to have this guaranteed. So that's why maybe also because we have GDPR, we could wait with the legislation on AI, because it was hanging in the air already in the previous mandate, and we did not want to overshoot the legislation. We didn't want to come with something which will hamper innovations. That's why we took some time to prepare it properly, and I believe that what we proposed is proportionate and still placing enough attention to the possible risks which we do not want to see.
First of all, thank you so much for saying what you're saying, because it matters a lot. And again, back to the whole WEBIT community around the world. First of all, we will be delighted to support you in initiatives. And second, definitely all you say matters. It matters for all of us that are in technology for the past many years, in my case, over 30, I believe now, and with everyone else. So definitely these are so important action points, and it required to be addressed. It required to be addressed big time, because that's what makes Europe a place that it is, of democracy, of values. And definitely social scoring is an interesting approach, but has nothing to do with human rights. And saying that, I would like to move further with more questions which are particularly of your domain. A group of European MEPs has been calling on the EU Commission to promote an anti-SLAPP EU directive to counter the attempts at silencing journalists. Are there any plans to create such directive, and what is your position about it?
Yes, anti-SLAPP or SLAPP phenomenon is a serious one, and we never did anything against that, to be honest. There is a gap. And for me, what was the eye-opening moment after the assassination of the Maltese journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia, I was informed by her son that still her family is facing 47 litigations.
Oh my gosh.
Against her, mainly in UK. So you can imagine how demanding it was for the family, and financially, psychologically. And I started to do the mapping of how exceptional such case is. It's not exceptional at all. It's the abuse of the civil law procedures, sometimes criminal law procedures, against the journalist is more and more frequent. And I think it's part of the general higher pressure against the media and human rights defenders, which we see in Europe. So, but you didn't ask about the analysis, you asked about the action. So we plan to come with the legislation still this year. I hope we will manage, because we are still doing this mapping of a rather complex issue. I have this initiative planned for, I think, December. I need to discuss it with the member states, because we have to be mindful of the legal competencies of the Commission or EU in matters, because here we are in criminal and civil law procedures. I would like definitely to come with a proposal which will address the cross-border litigations and decrease the threat in that through the cross-border litigations. And I will discuss with the member states how the domestic litigations could be addressed, because that's their competence. I would at least like to come with the recommendation that the member states do more to protect the journalists against this abusive litigation. And this is, I could give you a lot of legal information about the legal aspects, but we have to understand this SLAPP issue as the uneven battle between the two strong ones and two weak ones. And the slap is always, or in most of the cases, started by those who are either rich or powerful, and they already, by starting the litigation, want to silence the journalist. Yeah, and this is very dangerous for me when I see that the judiciary sphere, in fact, might be abused against the freedom of speech, because of course these procedures have chilling effect on the media as such, or on journalists in general. So we have to come with the action. It will not be easy, because this is a delicate matter, because this is a conflict of principles. On one side, the protection of the weaker ones, who deserve protection because of the freedom of speech and the ability to do the job of journalists. And on the other side, we have to see that there is the right of people of access to courts and right of protection against the defamation and against the libel. So we will have to balance these rights, and I do believe we will manage, and we have a lot of consultations ongoing, because I simply want to do this thing right. It reminds me a little bit the work on the whistleblowers directive, where we were tackling similar negative phenomena.
You see, we are now currently in a completely virtual world. Obviously, we have pivoted in a way to outreach even more people, and in a more even meaningful way, having access to them, and at the same time they have full access to our global network by meeting them with people like you and exchanging thoughts and ideas. But not many manage to have like one of the best platforms in the world for virtual events or hybrid. And the pandemic particularly hit very hard media sector, because obviously they were not able to, many of them, do events, but with the sector being shut down literally of the events for the past year and a half, other things also caused a lot of issues with them. So what's need to be done to promote media freedom and pluralism from that point of view?
First of all, we should do more to let the media and journalists do their job safely. That's why also in the European Democracy Action Plan, we are proposing not only anti-SLAPP, but also to strengthen the security of journalists, which is the domain of the member states again. So we will recommend the member states to increase the efforts to protect journalists. Again, we have horrible cases, already murdered journalists in Europe who were murdered because they were so good at their job. Yeah, for instance, Jan Kuciak, the Slovak journalist, he was under the threats, and the threats were announced to the law enforcement authorities, and they failed in protecting Jan Kuciak, and he was murdered together with his fiancée. So horrible, tragical case. And so again, the lesson to be learned. So first of all, the security of journalists. We will also invest money through our programs for legal aid, but also we are financing several shelters for the journalists who are under urgent threats, or the threats which are already very dangerous. So this is one thing. The other thing is we have to change the business model and financial model we see in Europe, because when media are weak economically, it's always accompanied by increased political pressure on media. These are interconnected things. So we are opening several envelopes with funding for the media to strengthen their economical position. We are encouraging the member states to use the recovery money to finance media as the economic sector, which is also heavily hit by pandemic. And we believe that this funding has to keep the media sector alive, and we have to look into the cash flow relating to the advertisers' money, because there is an incredible drop in advertising money for the traditional news media. The shift of money to online systems like Google and others is incredibly significant, and that's why we are now going to look into how the copyright directive is implemented. The copyright directive, if you remember the big battle in the European institutions around the simple thing that the journalists should be paid for their work, and their work must not be used for free by the online operators. Yeah, so the copyright directive will come into force at the beginning of June, and we will really look after how it is implemented and whether it works in practice, because the media and the journalists should be paid for their job.
Thank you so much, Vera. We have tons of questions for you, but I'm absolutely aware of the limits of your time availability, and that's why maybe that's going to be our last question. But it's very important, because in your own words, a resilient and critical society is what we need to fight against disinformation. What is your approach to enable EU citizens to better deal with disinformation?
Yes, again, million-dollar question. When we look at disinformation, we have to see three things: those who produce, those who channel and amplify and make money on it, and those who receive and believe. And this third category, this is us. This is us, the people who really should think twice when we read something which is increasing adrenaline and which is upsetting us. But I will never say that we, the people who are reading the alerting news, should do the fact checking. I think it's too arrogant. Nobody has time to do that. And so we want to increase the fact checking so that the people can reach the facts and data delivered by trustworthy channels, so that they can do their own assessment whether they want to read the conspiracy theories or the obvious lies which have potential to do harm to the society. And then, of course, media literacy and education. This is a long distance run, but we are funding a lot of projects. We also have it in the audiovisual media directive that there should be more media literacy education. We have it in the European digital education strategy. So we definitely have to do much more in making the society more resilient against the impact of disinformation.
That's the last question, but I cannot skip but asking you the real last one, because that's the one that we are always asking our attendees and our guests in this virtual studio of WEBIT powered by TDS. What is your prediction for the coming years? Where are we heading to, Vera? From the height of your position, overseeing one of the most important, I would say, domains, which is the values and transparency. Where do you see us as Europeans and as a humankind in the coming 1 or 2 decades?
I am positive, and I believe in strong Europe. I am happy to have a chance to contribute to that, hopefully. But I am positive, and I think that we have to manage now the post-COVID time. Because if we do not manage that, the people will see that there is justice for them, there is security for them, that they can have prosperous life in Europe, that the number of people who live in poverty will not increase, That's why it's very important that now the leaders spoke about the social pillar, because this is about the active, proactive work against poverty in Europe. So if we do not fail on all these practical things, we will be able to protect democracy and our system of governance, because we will be able to regain trust of people. Because without the trust of people, of Europeans, that we can together do good things for more certainty for the future, we will have a tough time. So I am positive, but there is a hard work ahead of us.
Thank you so much, dear Vera.
Thank you.
Wonderful WEBIT community, Ms. Věra Jourová, the Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency, was our guest today at WEBIT Virtual. Thank you so much again for your time and spending it with our global WEBIT community. I'm definite that there will be a lot of people who will be referring to this interview in the future. And I would like to tell you, stay safe. Make sure you change the world for a better, and hopefully we will meet soon. Thank you so much, wonderful WEBIT community. Thank you, Vera. Thank you all.
Thank you, Flamen, and thank you all for listening, and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you.
This program is powered by the Virtual.show, making your offline events virtual.